So, to that recall election in California, the impact that Governor Gavin Newsom's pandemic policies may have had on the special election, at least in getting it onto the ballot. So, time for a legal debate tonight with two of our favorite West Coast favorites. Right here on Fox News at Night, former U.S. Attorney Harry Litman and former Deputy Assistant Attorney General John Yoo. Welcome to you both. All right, you guys are California guys, so get some initial reaction from you tonight. John?
Well, you have to congratulate Gavin Newsom for running a tough campaign, but I think he missed the opportunity to address the problems led to the recall in the first place. I think what he did is he turned this into a Republican-Democrat battle, and he really focused on Larry Elder. But I think the reasons why California's demanded a recount were left unaddressed. The rising crime, homelessness problems, the closing down of the schools, the sputtering economy, high costs, high gasoline costs. Unfortunately, because of the partisan nature of the election as an election, we didn't really get much substantive discussion on these problems which are plaguing the state.
So, Harry, now that the heat is off with this recall, do you think that the governor will have less motivation or more to get down to brass tacks on some of those very real concrete problems?
Well, it is true that homelessness and crime were what initiated it. But, you know, the big news here, Shannon, it's so easy to have a recall in California. It's the 55th time it's happened. It's 27 times there's actually have been battles. And it was something like 5% of the population. That is what they were worried about. But I think it is an affirmation of his COVID policies which matter the most. Will he now also try to think about the things that animated his enemies here? Maybe, but he can now sort of go forward with a real, it's almost like in England where there's a new vote of confidence. And he did run, I agree with John, against Elder that way, but Elder led with his chin and was sort of Trumpist about it, and that made in California for a pretty easy strategy for Governor Newsom.
Well, and as we watch now to see what the governor does moving forward and policies and all those different big issues that voters do care about, there are ongoing legal battles there as there are in states across the country with regard to vaccine mandates. The LA Times is talking about some LAPD employees who are suing over the vaccination mandate. The piece says this: the lawsuit alleges the city's mandate ignores the natural protections provided by such antibodies and claims the suing employees can safely perform their job duties protecting themselves, fellow employees, and the communities they serve through non-pharmaceutical interventions like daily health screenings, wearing masks, and quarantine. John, we've started to see people have some success on this front of arguing that they've had COVID, they have natural immunity, and that a number of studies now show it's equal to or superior to the vaccines in a number of studies. Is it going to be a winning legal argument?
Well, Shannon, the fact that you mentioned is actually very important, because it means that I think what will happen is that the legal system will have to reconsider these very old cases from 1905, which is still the last time the Supreme Court allowed the states to mandatorily vaccine everybody, not just employees, but everyone in a state. That was for smallpox, though, which was much more virulent, much more communicable than COVID-19, and you didn't have this kind of scientific evidence you're talking about now. So I would say right now the LAPD officers, school teachers, nurses who are refusing to get vaccinated in California, and there are a lot of them, they have a tough hill to climb because of these old cases from the early 20th century. But it was before we had this revolution in constitutional rights. It's before the science has given us a lot more knowledge. I bet that it's going to cause the courts to reconsider and to be tougher in scrutinizing what the government's going to give for its justification for these kind of vaccination policies.
Yeah, and important to remember with that smallpox case, as you said, it was much more deadly than this virus, but their ruling was clear at that point that the state could do a number of things, but the fine equated to, I think, modern day $155. It wasn't people losing their careers, their ability to put food on the table and pay their rent and those kinds of things. So it will be interesting to see how the court handles this, if it, as I suspect, at least one of these cases will work its way up to some of the highest courts in the nation. In the meantime, the Riverside County Sheriff says he's not going to enforce the COVID-19 vaccine mandates on his workers. He says this, Sheriff Chad Bianco says he won't enforce any vaccine mandates for the department employees. He describes himself as the, quote, last line of defense from tyrannical government overreach. Harry.
Forget about it. And same thing with the state. Who should decide these things, Shannon? Look, people would say, well, there's another scientific view, but that's what government does. They've had the authority to do it for 100 years. The Riverside Sheriff, you know, he needs to resign, and it won't last. only if there's a revisiting of the entire sort of health and safety rubric in this country, starting with smallpox, is something like this going to fly. The governor and the government has power to do it, full stop.
Well, there are lawsuits, as we said, in states all across the country. So I got to think some of this bubbles up in some way to the court, because everybody continues to cite back to this 1905 case that seems pretty definitive on that situation more than a century later, facing this, very deadly pandemic. I think those justices may have to revisit that. And when they do, we'll have you two back to analyze it. Harry and John, thank you.
Thanks, Jen. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.